Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. It's your host, Jeff Lerner, enthusiastic as always to be here with you. This is truly one of the favorite things of my life, and that I get to do is have really awesome conversations with awesome people and actually get to call it work, which is kind of cool and almost silly. But today is no exception to that. We're interviewing Mikey Taylor, former professional skateboarder turned brewery founder, turned investment fund manager. But he's not just accomplished. He's got a great mission, a great story, a great energy, and I'm grateful to have him on Millionaire Secrets. Welcome, Mikey.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And I kind of feel like, we were chatting before the show. I feel like kind of a kinship already. Although, don't ever watch me on a skateboard. It's not pretty. I'm not even sure I can stand on a skateboard. Like, it's terrible. I have like no balance or vertical coordination, but I think we both probably at some point realized we weren't cut out for like the mainstream. We weren't going to be clocking in and sitting at a desk and so we kind of found our own path. Do you mind taking me back to kind of like how does, and just a little bit of context, just so you know, I have a half pipe in my backyard. And I have a 16, say again?
Do you have kids that skate?
Yeah, I have a 16 and 17-year-old sons, and particularly the 17-year-old has a group of about a dozen friends, and skateboarding is like their passion. So they're always at our house. They're always skating. I can't wait to go home and tell them that I interviewed Mikey Taylor. Like, I'm going to be super cool dad for tonight, at least. And so I have a lot of context from that standpoint. Like, I know some of the vernacular of the tricks and the trucks and But yeah, I'm terrible at it. But that said, I know that these guys love skateboarding, but like, there's no path that they would see realistically to go like, oh, that's going to be my career. But somehow you did. So do you mind taking us back there?
What's going to be fun about this is you're going to know everything that my parents experienced, because a lot of my story was because my parents were concerned about me skateboarding. Not the fact that I was skateboarding, but because I became so obsessed with something. And then as I got to the age point of needing a job, then the concern came in, right? So pretty much I picked up skateboarding, probably similar to your kids. I saw somebody with a skateboard. For me, it was one of the cool kids and I wanted to fit in. And so I got a skateboard. And prior to that, I would get into things. I would get super into them, lightweight obsessive, and then I would fall out of it. With skateboarding, I just became obsessed and then it never left. And so I started skateboarding around 13, 14, 15, 16. All I did every single day, all day. When I was 16, going on 17, my parents were a little bit concerned about me not working, wanted me to get a job. And I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to give up skateboarding at that point. So for me, it was, how do I not work so that I can continue to skate? And my solution was, I need to convince companies to give me free product, because that's all the stuff I would need money for anyway, is to buy skateboards, shoes, and clothes. And so I convinced my parents to let me go down that path. What if I can get these companies to give me free stuff, and it'll give me everything I need. And then if I need stuff like food or gas, I can just sell this new product to the other kids. Like, this will be my job. And I think my parents thought it was so outrageous that they were like, okay, if you go pull that off, fine. Mm-hmm. And so that was the beginning journey, was into my skateboard career, was how do I get companies to give me free stuff so I don't have to work?
I love it. I love that moment when your parents try to call your bluff, but then you call their bluff. I interviewed a guy. I don't know if you'd know who he was or who he is. His name's Tim Sykes. This guy Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Tim.
Yeah. So he day traded like, 20 grand when he was a teenager into like millions of dollars in college. But the same story. He told his parents, like, I want to invest that money. And it was like his bar mitzvah money. And his parents were like, okay, Tim, here you go. Good. It's better for you to learn a hard lesson about pissing away your money now. And a year later, he like had 100 grand. And then 2 years later, he had like $1 million. And they're like, crap, he called our bluff, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's what that reminds me of.
Similar story for me. So basically, I set out to figure out how to get sponsored. I convinced one of the kids who had a video camera in our town to film me and edit this 3-minute video of myself skateboarding.
Yeah.
And at this point, there was no social media. So I would go through the skate magazines. And for all the companies that had an ad, sometimes they would put their address at the bottom. So any company that put their address, I was sending a tape to. So I sent about 40 tapes out of me skating. I put attention team manager on the front of it, hoping somebody would call me back. And no one called me. And so I convinced the kid who had the camera to film another video that, had to be better. Mm-hmm. Sent another 40 tapes out. And then that second time I had 3 companies call me back. And then I was on my way to getting free product.
So yeah, man, it's so funny. I mean, like, I really relate to you as a musician. I mean, I made the proverbial like trip out to LA when I was like 19, had a little, I burned a bunch of CDs on my computer of our 4-track EP demo, went to every record label that I could find. I looked them up in the phone book or whatever. And was like, hey, I'm Jeff Lerner. I have an appointment with your A&R department. Like, they've never heard that before. And I'm like, well, can I at least drop off the package? And like, okay, fine. It ended up on the shelf. And, we never got a call. I wasn't as persistent as you. I didn't go for round 2. But hey, props on you for going for round 2, right? Like, you wouldn't be denied.
Yeah.
So you get the call, and now you're a millionaire, right?
So, yeah. So I'm getting free product, right? I'm getting free skateboards, free shoes, and free clothes. And, I was a skater. I didn't need much. I needed, at this point, I could get by in $10 a day. So it was like, I would sell one of the 8 boards I got a month for $35. I'd sell a couple pairs of shoes, and I was good for the month. So that basically kept me afloat until I was going to graduate. And my senior year, I started getting photos in the magazine. So companies started actually promoting me. And then, I graduated in June, and I was supposed to go on a trip to Europe with one of my sponsors in July. And so I was like at this kind of crossroads, like, oh my gosh, this is actually starting to work. I'm going to start getting to travel. But my parents were asking me where I was going to go to college. And so this became the second challenge to solve. How do I convince my parents that I'm not going to go to school and I'm going to take a shot at a pro skateboarding career? And at that time, skateboarding was really small. It wasn't like, I'm going to be a pro skateboarder and make a ton of money. This was like a fringe sport kind of. So basically, I felt like I had an opportunity to experience something that most people don't get to experience. And so I convinced myself, which ultimately convinced my parents, that what if I just do it for 3 years? I'll travel the world. I'll get to enjoy this. And then I could always go back to school afterward. And so my parents somehow said okay to that. And then, but the one requirement that they asked was I had to make money. I couldn't just do it for free. You have to have them pay you. So I called on my sponsors and I said, hey, look, my parents are forcing me to go to school. I would love to go on these trips with you. I know I have a shot here, but this is my situation. The only thing that they'll allow me to do is if I could get companies to pay me, then I cannot go to school. And so 2 of the 3 companies ended up paying me. And then that was my start to, okay, I'm going to give this a shot.
So I got to ask, can I just ask, because like, I'm so bad on a skateboard that part of me is just, wants to know, like, could I ever be good? I look at sports like basketball, for example. It's pretty easy to size somebody up, watch them in the gym for a few minutes and you're like, okay, that guy's got a gift. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He's 6'9" with a long wingspan. Like, there's some certain, quantifiables, right? I would say ditto football, right? He's 5'11", 230 pounds, and he has a 600-pound clean or something crazy, right? Skateboarding, seems to me, I mean, I know you got to have, obviously there's a basic foundation of like balance, but like, can feet be that coordinated? Like, is it something where there's a true natural gift, or is it just who loves it enough to do the work?
It's such a phenomenal question. Yes, there is a gift element to it. Some people are just have a natural ability to, their body just moves in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have better balance and they're able to control their body better than others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. So this is where I think all sports align. Yes, you do have people that are more gifted than others, but if you have the ability to at least be somewhat coordinated, then I think the mindset outweighs the talent. And the reason I say that is in my group, we had about 12 friends. So similar to your kids, we had this little squad of 12. In that squad, there were three skateboarders, and they were the best skateboarders I'd ever seen step on a skateboard. When they skated, it looked like they were walking. It was just second nature for them, right? For me, that was not the case. I was the worst in my group forever.
Huh.
Took me the longest to do tricks. From a talent standpoint, everybody was better than me. Out of my whole group, 3 of the skaters became pro skateboarders, and I became a larger pro than everybody. So for me, my success was I was willing to outwork everyone. And I think seeing people have it so easy drove me to the feeling that I had to outwork because I wasn't given this natural gift, which ended up putting out more output than the people that just were given this ability to perform. And so I think that it's a gift and a curse, man. It's like getting the cheats on a video game. When you get the cheats, you're like, yeah, this is amazing, this is fun. And then 2 days later, you're like, this is over it. But when you actually go through the work of trying to beat the game, it's way more fun. You spend more time doing it. So a lot of the guys that are just naturally gifted don't have the drive that the other guys have. And then it kind of ends up doing this, you know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And frankly, I was kind of the same way with music. I was naturally good, but not prodigious.
Yeah.
But I also started really late. I started when I was 17, but I outworked everyone. By my early 20s, I was gigging at the level of like the 50 and 60-year-old guys in town that have been doing it for 40 years. But I know why. I literally dropped out of high school and practiced 10 hours a day. It was the only thing in my world. It was my world. And I think with this show, my ethos, I'm always kind of trying to extract these broadly applicable principles. Because in reality, most of my audience is probably not trying to become a professional skateboarder, but they are very interested in being really successful, right? And I feel like the principle here is that if you measure your effort today solely in terms of where it puts you tomorrow, it will be kind of frustrating to try to compete with people that are more gifted than you. Because tomorrow, they're still going to be better than you. But if you think of your effort today as a deposit in an account so that you can increase the principal balance that's going to compound for the rest of your life, then you realize the value of doing that work today. And I realize I'm talking to a fund manager, so the metaphors.
I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, but that's how I think about it. It's like, do the work today because of who it's going to make you 10 years from now.
Yeah. And to add on that, because it's spot on, you have to remember that most people will stop in their journey. Most people aren't willing to get through the first mile, right? So it really is a resilience component to it as well. As if you can put the blinders on, stop comparing yourself to everyone else, and just keep moving forward, you will beat people just on the longevity and resilient aspect alone.
Yeah.
Most people just aren't built to withstand shit for a long time. That's the differentiating factor in my perspective.
That's I mean, folks, that's a takeaway right there. Most people are not built to withstand shit for a long time. And so let me ask you, I mean, again, I'm mapping my own experience. Like, I know what I went through from 17 to 20 when I was determined to become a professional piano player and everybody told me I was crazy. I know what that was like for me. I would like to hear you in your own words talk about a day in the life of a kid who's decided he's going to be a, quote, professional at something that's so fringe that the term professional almost is a misnomer. And like, what did it actually take for you to do? And what were the distractions and the competing influences and the things you had to say no to in order to pull that off?
Oh, it's such a good question. There's actually two parts of it. When I was young, and I think this is probably similar to your kids now, I would wake up before school and skate. I would go to school. Right after school, I'd go to the skate park and skate. I would come home, do whatever homework I had to do, eat dinner, and then go skate in the garage. That was every single day. I would never miss a day of skating unless I physically couldn't do it, which was very rare, right? That was my routine. And then as I started getting into like the later ends of high school, then like parties started being introduced and girls, etc. It was skateboarding. I never went to parties, never dealt with girls, weren't even on my radar, right? So that was the sacrifice, I think, at the high school end. When I moved into it actually being a career, dude, I skated 6 hours a day every single day for 24 years, never missed a beat, ever. And so I would end up having to become friends with younger kids because the people my age didn't want to do that anymore. Right. They wanted to chill out a little bit, experience life. So the hard part for me was trying to find new kids that had a higher drive than I had, so that I was constantly pushing myself. So I guess when I started getting older, the sacrifices were, relationships were the biggest one, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of friends. Girls weren't on my radar. I was only focused on skateboarding.
I swear, the life of a jazz musician and the life of a skateboarder, man, it's so funny. And it's not the life of a jazz musician or a skateboarder. It's the life of a committed creator in this world. The level of commitment and rigor that it takes to simply be a standout in this world. I mean, there's 7 billion flipping people, man. You want to be great at anything, you're going to be a weirdo. Right?
Right. That's right.
From one weirdo to another. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, you're spot
on. Okay. So, and I've read your story, but it's a lot more interesting to hear you tell it. So something starts to happen in the professional skateboarding world, where obviously you're not still a professional skateboarder. Like what kind of steered the shift into the next phase?
I got hurt. I got hurt when, let's see, I hurt my leg when I was 33. I tore a ligament in my leg. That didn't stop me from skateboarding. I was still able to skate. It just hurt.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had about 2 years left on my last deal. And I was kind of coming into that kind of age bracket where I didn't know how much longer I had, right? In my perspective, I thought I was going to ride out this deal, which would have put me at 36. And then maybe I'd get another 2 to 3 year deal, which would put me 38, 39, and then that would be it. So I make the decision to have surgery because I asked my sponsor, hey, would you rather me fix my leg now or after my contract? And they're like, no, fix it now. I fixed my leg 4 weeks after surgery. They find a clause in my contract and end my deal. And overnight, I'm on the couch, can't skate, contracts are done, no income coming in. And I was left with a choice. And that was, do I try to recover and then go through PT and maybe a year from now find another sponsor maybe and try to continue being a pro skateboarder for another 2 years? Or is this the moment where I step away and start working on the next phase? And that was at the end of 2016.
So you were 33. You started, I guess, the professional track when you were what, 18-ish, 17?
I turned pro when I was 19.
Okay, so you had a 14-ish year run.
Yeah.
I could see why you'd be like, yeah, I did that. I did that.
Tell you the truth, I wish that's how it went. It didn't. It was much harder than that, actually.
Really?
It was like, oh yeah, I didn't want it to end. And this was the big realization I had when it happened. We always want things to happen on our time.
Our way, yeah.
I want to do this, this, and this, and then I'm ready to walk away. And the reality is it just never happens that way. So for me, I was struggling with, this isn't what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have one more video part. I'm supposed to be thanked and have this like grand exit and thank you for everything you did. And it was just, you're not worth it, later disappear obscurity, right? It was
Yeah.
like, that was like the big thing I was wrestling with, which really meant I had to work on my ego. I had to work on my identity. I had to work on a lot of issues within, which made me totally comfortable stepping out and doing the next thing. But that was hard. It wasn't easy.
Yeah. I mean, you hear that a lot with athletes, life after sports, like sounds like an oxymoron to a lot of athletes. Like there is none, right? Were you, I know you're a family man. Were you married at the time? Did you have kids? Like where were you at personally?
We had 2 kids. My youngest daughter at this time was, I believe, 2. So we had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And it was, dude, it was a life change. It was a life change for all of us. I mean, it's one thing you having to go through it individually when a career ends, but like my relationship with my wife was challenged through it. Relationship with the whole entire landscape had to change.
Yeah, and
so
I'll bet it was cool to have a dad/husband that was a pro skateboarder, at least optically. I'm sure there were challenges with it. And then suddenly you're just an injured dude on a couch.
Right. That's right. You hear about this. It's funny, man. For athletes, we go through a lot of the same experiences that people go through at the end of their traditional career, right? 60, 65, they retire. The wife has to get used to, or the husband has to get used to them being home now. And it's like, you have to figure out how to work with one another again. We had to do that at, mid 30s. So it was, I think, good because it prepared me and also allowed me to resonate or relate to a lot of people older than me that were going through it, which is funny. Like, dude, I connect with like people in their 60s now. They're like, dude, I know exactly what you're going through. I'm going through it right now. And so that was actually a pretty cool bridge to bring together as well.
Well, yeah. And I don't want to fast forward too much in this story, but I mean, now you're in a legacy business and you're helping build, sustain, generational wealth. So you actually are a solution for people going through that now. So it's interesting.
I have a legacy building in my mid to late 30s. It's like, it's such a
yeah. So tell me then, okay, so you're on the couch, it's a bad day. You find out the rug just got ripped out from under you. But clearly you picked yourself up, dusted off, and what was the brewery? What came next?
No, we had already started the brewery and sold the brewery before this even happened.
Okay.
So basically, and I left out a big component to my story, but remember I told you my parents were like, you have to get companies to pay you?
Yeah.
Well, once they started paying me, they were like, okay, if you're actually going to do this, you need to connect with our friend. And they had a friend who was managing their money. He ran a multifamily office, and their idea was, if he can help you financially, we'll feel more comfortable about this being your career.
Right.
And so I met this guy when I was 19, 20, and thankfully, thank God, he basically started mentoring me through my career. This is how money works. Built the foundation before I started making money, so that once I really did start making money, all of my disciplines were already created. So I was already on this path with him of what life was going to look like during my transition, at least financially. And then as I started getting older, I started really enjoying how the business side of skateboarding worked. I got my first signature shoe, and I saw that I could really make money when I was able to sell product with my name on it. So I got really fascinated with how the sales process worked, how marketing worked. And that led me to want to create a brand that I could have full control. And, if I had a vision, I could totally bring it to life without having to worry about doing it for someone else.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of me wanting to create a brand. 3 years later, St. Archer, which was the craft brewery, is when we started that. We came up with the idea in 2011. We launched it in 2012, and then we ended up selling at the end of 2015. And then the following year is when my career technically ended. So what was fascinating was I had already created business outside of skateboarding. I already knew I had a talent outside of skateboarding. So a lot of those insecurities and concerns were already addressed, right? And then I had already achieved financial freedom before my career ended, which is very, very rare for a skateboarder. And so what I thought my transition was going to feel like was, I'm financially free. I don't have to rely on anybody paying me. I'm good. Like, I thought I was going to be good.
Yeah.
And what I experienced was, this is the shittiest, most awful feeling of my life. And I felt like I was no one. And so as I was working through, why do I feel this way? Why did I go from being happy and confident and I could do anything, and any challenge you put in front of my face, I will crush it, to, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It was like a whole different person. And so as I was working through I would say the inner self, that's where the idea ended up coming up to create what I do now, which is Commune. But it was in that dark moment that created something pretty awesome.
So I have two, I don't know if they're observations, questions, comments, whatnot, but two things in what you just said that really, really impacted me. One is, so 33, I think that was the year, you're you're a multimillionaire, you sold your brewery, you're financially free. You're a former professional athlete. Like, it's not like you don't have a cool factor or some credentials, you know, something you can flex, but you're miserable. So one could extrapolate from that your achievements and your money are not enough to make you truly happy in this world, because you had a heavy dose of both and you were still unhappy. And what ultimately, as it seems like, brought you around to that was settling on something that's more mission focused, service focused, and about having impact in the world. And I will say, I'm mapping my experience to yours, 100% relate to that, man. 2 years ago, sold my agency, cashed out, there were some financial hiccups that don't matter. The point is, I thought I was good, but ultimately I realized the only thing I truly love and feel super passionate and connected about and fulfilled by is my family. But as a man, and I don't know if maybe it's not politically correct to say that, as a human, I got to do something else. And mission and a service-oriented business now is my fulfillment. So I totally relate to you on that. The other thing I have to say about what you shared is the fact that you got your financial infrastructure and started building your financial literacy at 19 before you started making good money is, stands out to me. I think it's very unique. Not a lot of people do that. So many people in this world have sort of a reactive concept around becoming educated and equipped financially. We're like, what? I got to go get some cash so I can figure out what to do with it. And I can say for myself, I started going to these conferences in 2009 when I first started marketing online. I hadn't made much money yet, and they were wealth education conferences. And I did the same thing. I got these things in place so that I had buckets to put the money in, so they didn't get, and the buckets didn't have holes in them, so it didn't lose it all. Because, I mean, tell me, like, pro skateboarders retiring in their mid-30s, whether they've built a successful business or not, how many of them actually end up falling on hard times?
That was the unique thing. There's maybe 3 people that were able to do this.
Tony
right?
Hawk, Mikey Taylor, and probably one other guy.
Rob Dyrdek.
Okay.
It's like, there's not that many guys, right?
Oh,
Maybe
that's the guy
others,
from the
small.
MTV show, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. That's who turned me pro, actually. But anyway, to build on what you just said, because it is so powerful, we have this idea that once we have it, then we'll figure it out. I'll be happy once I have this. Once I make money, I'll educate myself. But, and we all know this, you cannot be responsible with a lot unless you're responsible with a little.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, where I really lucked out is that I had somebody basically instill these values when I was young, because I was so impressionable at that point that thankfully I had great guidance, right? That could have gone another way. But it was a huge blessing because I'd already created these disciplines. And everybody thinks when it comes to money or investing, it's all about strategy. It is not. The discipline is the biggest bulk of success. 85% is discipline. So if you can create that, you will be financially free, 1000%. You don't have to know the investment with the greatest return. You don't have to beat the market. You do not need to do that. You need to work on the behavior.
People think that building wealth, or however you said it, is about having the right strategy, but 85% of it is about discipline.
The 2 types that are the most successful investors. So it's so fascinating. I was having this conversation with my partner a couple weeks ago. The first type is somebody who knows the insides and out of their business. They do all the due diligence. They understand the industry. They understand the fund managers. They act almost like a private equity shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other type is on the whole other opposite side of the spectrum. They put their blinders on. They don't really know anything about any of the markets. They just, every single month, they save this amount and they put it into their investment. Clockwork, just discipline, discipline, discipline. Those are the two types. Everyone in the middle actually really struggles. So it shows you that you either need to be a full-blown active investor that does all of your research and is incredibly educated, or have the discipline and just have everything automated and stick to it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and that latter camp, I mean, two books come to mind. The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Actually, 3 books. I think there was one called The Starbucks Effect. It's like, skip your latte and put it in an annuity or something. Yeah.
Be an owner as opposed to a consumer. Yep.
And then The Millionaire Next Door.
Yep.
Totally.
That's right.
I mean, and that's really interesting. My dad was a money manager. So he was the former. He's a very sophisticated, savvy investor. So I think maybe one of the benefits for me is I saw how much work it takes to be a sophisticated investor. And so for me, I'm much more pick a few things and be ruthlessly consistent about them.
That's right.
Life insurance, cash flow, real estate. And I have my spread, right? I'll admit I even do a little crypto dabbling, but like mostly it's real estate and that infinite banking concept I'm sure you're familiar with. So yeah, I think that's, for everybody, again, takeaways, like don't wait to become financially literate and again, financially equipped to create the apparatus, the mechanism in your life that I think does 2 things. One, obviously it'll compound and it'll lead to wealth. But you said something else earlier that I think also links to this, which is when you said most people don't have, I don't remember exactly what you said. Most people can't take shit for a really long time, but it's about staying power. It's a lot easier to have staying power. I've been a digital marketer now for almost 13 years. Nobody's more flaky than internet marketers. They make $100,000 and they move to Thailand and they blow it, they live in a hut and they blow it all on girls or whatever. I've been a digital marketer for 13 years and I haven't taken a month off. I've changed models, but people look at, frankly, some of what I'm doing now, and it's kind of a different level of what you see like on the internet from like the guy that, made $100,000 and rented a Lamborghini or whatever. Like I've got a real stuff that's happened. But it's taken 13 years. I haven't missed a month. I haven't missed a week. Honestly, in 5 years, I don't think I've missed a day. And it's a lot easier to have that kind of staying power when you're operating within a pre-constructed framework where you're like, I know that this is my role because I have a role to play inside of a larger infrastructure.
Yes. And right? I think 1,000%. And I think it actually should build confidence in a lot of people.
Yes.
When you look at the actual numbers, right? Like real estate agents are another example. It's like the highest percentage of drop off in any industry, and it happens in the first year, right? So if you go and look at the numbers and look at the percentage of drop off, you can find confidence that you will be successful if you're willing to just stay in longer, right? Grant Cardone has that quote, and it's like so simple but so true. If you don't quit, you can't fail. Right, he talks about his wife. He just would call her 4 times a day for 40 years until she said yes. If you don't let up, you will succeed. It just becomes a time variable now. The variable becomes time, but the if you succeed goes away. You will succeed. You just stay in longer than everybody.
Amen.
I mean, how many entrepreneurs do you hear that like start their first business fail, second business fail, third business fail, 6 business hits, boom. Right? If you leave after the first business, you don't make it to the second, you don't make it to the third, you don't make it to success.
Yeah, depending on how you slice it, I finally hit on anywhere from my 8th to 10th. Yeah. MLM, fail. Flipping houses, fail. Originating loans, fail. Party promotion, fail. Booking agency, fail. Coupon cards in college towns, failed. Mobile marketing for coupon cards or coupon via text message, failed. Mobile marketing for real estate sign writers, failed. So that's 8. What am I missing here? Oh, my 2 franchise restaurants that put me $500,000 in debt. That's 9. Finally.
Yep, that's right.
But I was an overnight success, man. It was, right? It was easy.
That's
but
right.
that's the story. That's every story. You find an entrepreneur that succeeded on their first one. They're either so lucky as to be completely useless and irrelevant, or they're just not telling you everything. Okay. So commune capital. I want to make sure we get to really talk about that. I sense that that's something you're deeply passionate about. You've sold the brewery, you lose your skateboarding career. What's the transition there? Because, a lot of being a fund manager is about trust and credibility.
Everything.
You're an ex-skateboarder, dude. Like, why am I going to trust you with my money? So tell me that story.
Oh, it's such a good one. So basically, when I was trying to figure out how to become myself again, right? How do I feel good about myself? My first answer to the problem was I need to start a new company, and I'll find my identity in the new company I start, which for anyone who is ever going through this process, you're going to fail doing it this way. So basically, I'm coming up with all these ideas. I'm going to be Mikey Taylor, the shoe guy, and I was going to start a shoe company, right? And basically, all I was trying to do was put a Band-Aid on the bigger issue. And as I'm going through this, like, what the hell is going on? One of my buddies calls me. He's another pro skateboarder. And he hadn't seen me in like 6 months. And he was like, dude, where are you? Like, what the hell is going on with you? Are you okay? And I basically was just like totally honest with him. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't even know what game I'm playing. I know I can succeed. I don't even know what the game is. And so as I'm telling him all this stuff, I'm pouring out my heart to him, right? He goes, oh, okay. Well, how's your money? Like, it was like, it didn't even register him. How's your money? Like, you're in a house, you have kids. Like, are you good?
Yeah.
And so as I'm like, yeah, the money's fine. It's all this other stuff. It hit me. Holy shit. All of my friends inside of skateboarding are so concerned about life after skateboarding because everybody's scared how they're going to make money again, right? And so I started going back to my situation. Why am I sitting here only having to work through the emotional stuff when everybody else is only concerned about the money? And so I started like kind of going through this thought, like if everybody loses their career and then has to figure out how to survive, they're not even going to be able to address this crap that I'm dealing with. Because when you're in survival, you don't have the luxury to go, why don't I feel like myself again? What is my identity? What is my purpose? Your focus is, how do I eat? And how do I have a place to stay, right? And so I started thinking about like what put me in this position. And what I kept going back to was Randy, who was my mentor. I had somebody come into my life, instill these financial principles, had opportunities that I was investing with him when we started St. Archer. He helped us start St. Archer. And so I was like, you know what? I need to replicate Randy. I need to recreate Randy for all of my friends. And then I could help put them in a position where they could also work through the emotional stuff. And so that was like how the company or the idea started. And what's funny is Randy, who had the multifamily office, they also had a private equity division in their company. So they ran alternative investments as well. One of their funds was repurposing assets into storage units. The other was lending on commercial real estate. So that was my real estate exposure, was investing with them. So when I came up with this idea, I was like, okay, I need to have a part of the business be education. I need to educate people on how money works, build the principles, but I also want to have opportunity that they can participate in that will actually put them in a good position when their career ends, right?
Yeah.
And St. Archer, which was a startup, was a huge blessing for us, more of a high risk investment, right? The probability of us failing was much higher than us succeeding, but if we succeeded, the payout was huge, right? Well, the majority of my money was actually in real estate. And so when I thought about the opportunity that I wanted for people to participate in, I wanted it to be real estate. So I put together my business plan. I had the whole story, the concept, everything. I wanted it to be a fund, but I didn't know anything about fund management. I didn't really know much about private equity at all. And so I called Randy. Hey, I want to get your 2 cents on this. So I give him my business plan. And I was like, who do I need to bring in to help me build this vision? How does the fund work? And as he's going through it, he's asking me questions, and he finally goes, hey, instead of me telling you who to go hire, why don't we have a conversation about us doing this together? We run funds. We have all of that built.
Yeah.
Like, let's do something together. So 3 years ago, we ended up starting this company together, which was the guy my parents made me meet when I was 19. We did that for 2.5 years. And then actually this last month, we ended up consolidating all the brands together.
Cool.
So the 2 funds that I was investing in through my skate career as a limited partner are now 3 funds under our management company that we started together.
You know, that's so cool and so interesting. And frankly, kind of answers the question, you know, you are partnered with somebody who's got that track record, right? You know, it's actually interesting we're talking about this. I've been studying up on funds myself, if I will confess. And it seems like in a fund, you need 3 people. You need like the operations, like fund manager. You need like the super hardcore nerd, like analyst genius guy. And then you need like the face who goes out and raises money. Is that accurate? Is that your experience?
1,000%. I mean, truthfully, it's very similar to business as well.
Yeah.
It's like you usually have the visionary, kind of the more entrepreneur, I'm going to drive forward, build something. And then you usually need the operator, the person that actually is organized, right? And then you have all the other compartments to help create.
In some business, you need like the technician.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. So in fund management, you nailed it. The thing was, because of St. Archer, and even throughout my skate career, I knew what my skill set was.
Yeah.
And so I had already started companies, and I knew the people that I needed to find. It just so happened that that same personality worked when it came to fund management. I'm not an ops guy, not me at all. So when we started talking about basically building this fund together, we had the fund manager or who oversaw our operation. We had our CIO, which was the technician or the analyst. And then you have all the other people that help support that. But at the core of it, you're totally right. You need the face or the person that's going to drive it forward and bring dollars in. You need the person that is the brain that's going to analyze deals. And then you need the person that operates the whole unit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the fund business is so cool. It's so powerful. Like a lot of people don't realize, you know, unless you're charging a separate management fee, you know, beyond like the catch up return, you don't even need like a Series 6 or you don't need a license. You can literally just collect people's money, put it into investments. They get paid first. They get the preferred, you know, 6 or 8% or whatever. You play catch up and get the next 2 or 4, and then you divide everything thereafter. Like literally, you could quit your job as a high school dropout janitor, and if you can assemble the right, you know, presentation, go start a fund, baby. Like it's but there's a fiduciary responsibility. Don't be an idiot. But like it is very accessible, more accessible than I think people realize.
So 1,000%. 2 parts of what you just said. One, once you switch over that it's all about team building and it's not just about you, you can accomplish anything. So if you're not the best at something and you're looking at how do I build the best team, well, that's what you go out and build. You bring people on that all of you together are going to succeed. So team building is everything. Anyone can do it in a sense of I'm a skateboarder who graduated high school. That is all, right? Our funds, our 2 funds together are worth $140 million. A skater did this, cool, right? Yeah. But, and the big but, you are correct. And this was the new part of this experience. When we did St. Archer, we didn't have the responsibility that we have with Commune.
Yeah.
I have a compliance officer now. We're regulated by the SEC. Everything that goes out has to be approved first. It's a different type of environment, but it is totally possible for anybody to participate in it. I have no license. People ask me all the time, do you have a real estate license? Do you have any of your series? No, nothing.
Yeah. And I will layer onto that. I'm a jazz musician. I don't know what I do now. Entrepreneurial educational institution founder. And I guess I'm like, am I like the dean? I don't know, but like, Yeah, it's crazy what you can achieve when you let go of the idea that you need some qualification or credential that's external. The qualification and credential is internal competence and confidence. It's not external. I mean, unless you're trying to do surgery, but like if you're trying to be successful, being undereducated, being underconnected, like none of those are valid excuses. They're just excuses. The other thing, I can't end this. I can't let this end without coming back to this. So I'm going to go there now. You talked about this like hit me. Like we were like two notes in the same chord when you said this, that because you didn't have to worry about the money, you could actually process your emotions. You could do the personal development. You could do the growth. You could find real fulfillment and find a mission, right? I could not agree with that statement more strongly in my own life. And just from, I mentor a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, and a lot of people are like, I just want to start a business because I need to make more than what I make at my job, or my job is so rigid and monopolizes all my time that I can't be happy. I can't have the life I want. And it's kind of this means to an end, where the end is like, I got to get enough money so that I can actually go be happy. And, you can kind of maybe rhetorically debate that, but at the end of the day, that's most people's experience of the world. It's like, I mean, and it's Maslow's hierarchy, right? Physiological, safety, love, esteem, and then self-actualization, right? Like that's, I don't know how old that is, 100 years old or whatever. We're not going to change it. When you solve people's money problems, you help them heal and you help them grow. And it's really beautiful work. And I think a lot of times people are very cynical about money. But, I can say for myself, I actually became what I would consider to be a whole person in my mid to late 30s through a ton of therapy. I married a woman who had 3 kids. They were not biologically my kids. I adopted the kids. We did the blended family thing. We went to therapy. I did a lot of really hard work, like thousands of hours of hard, painful work with crying and hugging and all this embarrassing stuff. And I'm a really happy guy now. And I wasn't before, but I was only able to do that because we had the base of security that we weren't constantly putting out other fires. And frankly, we could afford a good therapist. It's so true. And that's one of the reasons my mission is very money focused. And I think yours is too, is because it's actually how you do in many ways the most good in the world.
I couldn't agree more. And I just want to add a couple points to that, because I think this is incredibly powerful. There's a lot of things in our life that will distract us from why we're actually here on this earth, right? It just so happens that money seems to be that biggest driving factor. We have the most emotional attachment to money. Money, in a lot of times, gives us our gauge of how good of a job we're doing. The more money I make, the better I am, right? So there's all these challenges to money. Money, the love of money is the root of all types of evil, right? It says something we have the Bible, right? You know what the Bible talks about more than anything? Money management, right? Fear and greed. Those are the biggest driving factors to corruption. That just happens to breed through money. So one thing, and I love that you just said, is if you can get people, our purpose is that we just chose money to be the distracting element that we can help solve so that they can get to the point of understanding true purpose, right? And a lot of times we're constantly chasing these things. And once we finally realize that the thing isn't enough, then we realize there's more to life, right? And a lot of times that realization happens very late on.
Yeah.
So for me, and really what it came down to was I understood that I had to solve, or I had to answer 3 questions to truly enjoy life. Who am I? Why am I here? And where do I go when I die? Identity, purpose, destiny, right? Thankfully, I was able to realize those when I was young, so that now, dude, the last 4 years, I'm in a whole different place than I was my entire life. My enjoyment, fulfillment, reason, purpose is all aligned now. Just money happens to be a big distractor. And so I just chose money to be the one that I'm going to try to tackle. Yeah.
It's almost like the mission, and I think, again, you and I are very aligned in this way. It's not to make people better by making them richer. It's to eliminate money as a red herring from people's lives, to think that that's where the problem is. Because once you solve that, then they can actually go tackle the real issues, right?
1,000%. Why do you see so many successful people who are, financially healthy and morally bankrupt, right? You look at every other aspect of their life and it's destruction, multiple divorces, no relationship with kids, drug issues, right? So that we know that chasing money or making money doesn't mean you're successful in every field. Just money seems to be the thing that we all chase. So a big driving factor and something I learned is we don't get a good enough example, excuse me, of what a healthy relationship to money is, right? We don't see the guy who is a millionaire who's financially free and you would never know.
Yeah.
We don't see the guy that doesn't throw him out around money like it's nothing, like it's an object, right? So I think there's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate what you're saying, because that opportunity, I think, is the gap in the market that my business is trying to fill. Entre Institute is. So, yeah, validation from Mikey Taylor, everyone. We're on a good track, man. Yeah. This has been epic, like mega epic. I wish we could just talk all day, and hopefully we'll get to do it again. But I want to make sure that the world gets to know how they can come find you, both you personally and also learn more about your business, whatever you'd like to share.
I would say if you're on social media, at Mikey Taylor is pretty much my handle to everything. Instagram. Mm-hmm. I probably spend the most time on TikTok at the moment. And if you get there, you can find everything. My company is in my bio. If you want to check it out, it's communecapital.com. And then if anybody is interested, I have a text group. And I send out a message every Monday morning and then spend the next 6 days trying to catch up on messages, which has been pretty cool. But if anybody wants to follow me there, I'll give you my number. It's 805-953-8938. Shoot me a text and we can stay in contact that way as well.
Cool. And we'll make sure, obviously, to put all those links and numbers in the descriptions wherever this appears. I got to ask, is that powered through community?
Yeah.
We're bringing our community account on. We've had it for a few months and we're finally bringing it online like this week. So
the best thing out of all the platforms, I enjoy TikTok the most right now, but the most powerful one is community for me. It's a different experience when you're connecting with people. I would recommend it. It's huge.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it online because, I'm grateful that my platform has grown to where I literally can't keep up with the DMs. I can't keep up with the support tickets and the messages and the Facebook comments and all that. I totally see the value in community for manageable, large-scale personal communication.
100%.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to share as well. We actually put a page up in sort of preparation for this episode. So if people want to go to millionairesecrets.com, that should be easy to remember because that's the name of the show, /Mikey T. millionairesecrets.com/Mikey T. You can download a free copy of my ebook, The Millionaire Shortcut, which kind of gives you the basics on my frame for succeeding in the new digital economy. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and listen to our podcast and watch amazing shows like this with amazing people like Mikey. Mikey, like I said, man, mega epic. I'm so grateful for your time. This has been wonderful.
I'm stoked to be here. Tell the kids I said what's up also.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And now I have it recorded that you said.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks again for being a guest on Millionaire Secrets. And thank you to all the viewers and listeners out there. You guys are truly the best part of this show and why I do what I do every day. Take care. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.